Hey, 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 everybody. It is a rainy Wednesday afternoon. It is the day before Halloween. Oh, goodness gracious. I love Halloween. All the kids coming, all dressed up, asking for candy. Us parents giving them out so that they don't egg your house for the rest of the year. Cannot wait for that day. Jeff, my man, you're looking good. You're looking like you survived New York. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, I have survived New York. It is,
How was it?
yeah, it was great. We did MSG. We did a Broadway play called Wicked. We went saw a Rangers game. We went to the Met. We ate at great restaurants, drank at fantastic rooftop bars. Had great people to hang with. Um, it's a city that never sleeps, but we made it sleep. We were the individuals that never slept. So
You shut
um,
it down? You
we
shut
it seemed like we shut
you
it down. It was
there
like,
you
hey,
go.
I thought the city never sleeps. Why is everything closed? And we're still going at it. So it was definitely nice to get back home. Had great weather. Um,
That's awesome.
Anybody that's ever in New York, you just got to check it out. Be ready to spend money. If you're going on a budget, you're not going to have a full New York experience, that's for sure.
Favorite moment.
You know what? My favorite moment, to be quite honest, was with the people that I went with. We went down with my girlfriend and five of our or four of our friends, and that was my favorite moment. Was just hanging out with good people, having a good time, and we could have been in Hope and probably had a great time. So my favorite moment was just the community and just the overall experience. So
That's awesome, buddy. That's awesome. Well, see, you're like that is all way more fun than I had. I just had a chill weekend, did a little bit of work, had a couple of showings and really just relaxed with the family. Oh, my favorite part though, my favorite moment was my princess Lizzie and the wife. They went out to Crumble Cookie
oh,
and brought back some crumble cookies. And yeah, I was in heaven, man. Oh, shout out to crumble cookies. Those things are great. Oh, loved every moment of it. So everybody has to at some point get out there. I think they're in Coquitlam. There's only the one. Man, so good. Amazing. Amazing.
yeah, never. So it's worth the drive for a cookie.
It is worth the go. I didn't drive. They went and picked it up, so it was great. I had it delivered to me, so it was that much better. I didn't have
Yeah.
to make the drive, so it was amazing. Yeah, if you could Uber Eats and do whatever you got to do, get a crumble cookie, man. It's worth it. It's worth the treat.
Hey, you had me at
Or
cookie.
make a friend like Jeff and have him send you one. Wink, Jeff. Wink. So I can shout that out that you did that next pod. Wink, Jeff. Wink.
You might get a cookie, but it might just be the crumbs in a box. But it's coming to you.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, man, I there was something I wanted to talk about today. I was reading an interesting article. So StatsCan, they released the latest wealth survey. Now, they only do this survey only every few years. Uh, but what was released was ridiculous. Um, what I wanted to do was kind of dive into it. The wealth gap, which is between homeowners and renters, it is widening, buddy, like you could not imagine. So the survey found that homeowners, so especially those 55 to 64, now it's those with an employer sponsored pension, right? That group of people now have a median net worth of about $1.4 million. So now compare that group with renters in the same age category without a pension. Those have a median net worth of $11,900. So we were just celebrating your birthday, Jeff. You are 54 years old, correct?
54, yes.
54, next to be 55.
Yes.
So now, thankfully, you don't have a pension because you work for yourself, but thankfully you own. Now, if you did not own, you would then be a renter, and you would fall into that group of people whose net worth is $11,900
Yeah, and I would
compared to
almost,
those that had in same category that had a pension. Theirs was 1.4 million.
yeah. And I'm curious if that net worth is not necessarily the focus on the pension, it's the focus on the home ownership.
Well, we'll get into that, Geoff. We'll get into that because there was the next set I wanted to get into. So, pardon me. So this is where we're going to get into. So the gap is now showing, I beg your pardon, how critical it is for us as Canadians to own a own a property to accumulate its wealth. What was equally revealing, Geoff, was the trend among younger families under 35, whose net worth averages $457,000 for homeowners versus renters in that same category. You know what their net worth is?
No.
Take a
Low.
guess. Take a guess.
$6,000.
457. It's $44,000.
Wow.
So 35 years old, people that are now 35 years old, right? If they own a property that person on average, their net worth is $457,000. For those that are renting, same age group, their net worth is $44,000.
Crazy.
That is crazy when you think about it, Geoff. Like, so that's what I'm saying. So that's where the home ownership, yes, and that's where that in the age category of 55 to 64, of course, because that age group typically owns already a property, whereas that age group of renters, right, they don't, and that's why their net worth is $11,900. So that takes in that $1.4 million. That takes into account that property that they own.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
Well,
is.
I've always said that 90% of your net worth or the
Mm-hmm.
majority of your net worth is actually coming from the property that you own and or you've sold and the equity that has been sold or built in with it versus your employment income, right? So
Well, that's it. So that's it, right? So the message is now clear. Real estate now is just not one path to wealth now.
no,
It's literally a requirement. Like it's not a path, right? There used to be a whole bunch of different funnel stocks, all in like property investment. It is now a requirement.
yeah. Well, it's a foundational block to your net worth.
It's absolutely unbelievable. I didn't know if you had heard about this or read about this. So I wanted to get your thoughts around it.
It doesn't necessarily surprise me. I didn't know quite what those numbers were. But again, I've always said your biggest asset is the home that you own. I've always said that your net worth is going to come from the properties that you've owned and sold over the years versus your employment income. Um, and and I've also said that your home is the biggest piggy bank that you can ever have, right? So
Yeah.
does it surprise me? Absolutely not. Did I know the numbers was that huge of a gap? Oh, that's a little bit alarming. But it's also important to know that the average Canadian income, as far as a family goes, is about 109,000. So it's not a lot either, right?
Yep.
But if you can have the ability to purchase a home with the income that you're earning, yeah, as you said, it is a foundational block to what your net worth is going to be when you get older,
Well,
55.
see, here's the other thing I think the survey tells us. I think it tells us that the trend it raises some fundamental questions about accessibility and sustainability, right? Especially like, right, we're in a situation right now where so many Canadians are feeling priced out while the value of real estate continues to rise. And all that's doing, right, is create a cycle where only those with properties can get ahead. And that's a sign of a financial system that's becoming increasingly dependent on property ownership as a key driver of wealth. I beg your pardon.
Well, and there's also the topic of what the government may do with that equity and your wealth, as far as there was I think I heard it through some type of discussion or some type of platform, that there's been talk that that your gain or your equity in your primary residence upon a sale is going to be taxed,
Yep.
right? So
I have a friend of mine who's going through that right now with the property gain, the gains being taxed.
that's on an investment property, not on a primary.
No, it's on a primary. His father passed away, and that's what they're sorting through right now.
Yeah. So, but
Yeah,
imagine that that's your home,
yeah,
and now you've just sold it for whatever
right,
reason,
for right.
and now it's you're getting taxed, not the estate is getting
State
taxed.
is
You're
right.
getting taxed.
You're getting taxed. I beg your
Right.
pardon. Yes, that's it. Yes, and that is crazy because that you also didn't expect to buy a home at $48,000, let's
Yeah.
say, and have it appreciate to $3.2 million. You'd also didn't expect that. That's also that, and that gets into the discussion with the vacancy tax, with the vacancy tax and speculation tax, and all that sort of nonsense that happened to these poor people. The taxes that occur on something that you didn't initially see to appreciate so much,
Yeah.
right? But there's more to the story though, because the one thing that this survey doesn't capture is it doesn't capture Canada's wealthiest, right? So what it only takes into account, it caps it at the top 5% of Canadians, which is around $2.4 million. So it misses the significant portion of wealth, which is held by the ultra, quote unquote, I know we can't say that, it's the ultra wealthy. So if you were to like factor in other data like the Forbes rich list or reports from, like, let's say the parliamentary budget officer, it's estimated that Canada's top 1% actually hold about 25% of all of the wealth. That's double what is reported in the survey.
Yeah. I believe that.
Crazy, crazy. So like again, like we really wanted to. That's one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about that this survey that was done, is because this is why we have this podcast. It's not for us to garner clients, right? It's not for us to say, hey, let's use Geoff as a mortgage broker, or let's use Allister as a mortgage, or as a real estate agent. Let's go buy a home today because we want to sell you a home or get you a mortgage or whatever. We really do want to educate people truly on how important it is to start realizing how important it is to get into the market when you can, some way, somehow,
And,
right?
and also understand that getting into the market doesn't necessarily mean you're going to buy your dream house, right?
No,
It's a
no, that's
stepping
why
stone, right? It's a
to
stepping
that
stone
to
where
that
you would need
place.
to start, and then you sell, and then you buy, and then you sell, and then you buy, and then you sell. And as your years go on, you're also accumulating seniority with your employment, and it's a growing process. I think so many of us, Alistair, just want everything in the moment and in the now, and get frustrated that they can't, and they don't realize, or they fail to recognize that, hey, maybe, yeah, I want to buy that house. Maybe I got to start with that condo, right?
Right.
And then that condo is going to lead to the townhouse, and then that townhouse might lead to the house. And it's a process, but if you don't
Well,
start, you're never ever going to get there. And based on the study, again, a large part of your worth, your net worth, is going to be coming from that home that you own. And um, again, 55 years old, that's not very far away.
no, and it's funny actually that you give that scenario. So I, as you know, I moved here from Winnipeg, Manitoba. So when I sold my house in Winnipeg, of course, it's Winnipeg. I could own a home. It was wonderful. And moved to British Columbia, I bought it. I could only afford a townhome, which really bothered me. I remember having that discussion with the realtor. And the realtor said to me, the process in British Columbia is you buy your condo, sorry, and you live in it for a few years until you basically have get married and have that first child, and then she's pregnant with that second, and then that's when you move into your townhome and you live in that townhome for a few years while the children get bigger, and then you have that third one, and then you need that extra little bit of room, and then that's when you've now moved into your home, and that's when again you move to that home and that home and the next home and so forth, so on and so forth. So again, that was, I've been here for 18, 18 years now, 17, 18 years now. So that when that's explained to me, I kind of just now taken it for granted that everybody's always known that that's the way it sort of has operated here. So, and it's, and so for us to kind of, I guess, lost sight of, of the importance of being in the market here and taking that step back and saying, no, as much as I got those 3 acres with 2 properties on it and all of that sort of stuff, let me look at buying this townhome first, right? And then working my way up. Or like I said, that I know I want this $1.5 million home or this $800,000 townhome. Maybe the condo makes more sense because that's what I can afford right now. But I'm in the market. And now, instead of being that person with, what did I say, $44,000, right? If you're 35 years, so you're 35 years old, instead of that being that person that has $44,000 of a net worth, I am now that person that has $457,000 of net worth. Like that is
Because you own a property.
because you own a property. That is because that's the only way it changes. That's what this podcast is about. That's what this whole survey is about. That's what the survey is about. It's not about stocks. It's not about anything. This is all about home ownership, property ownership, right? And that is the part that is that number is becoming so, the gap is becoming so big. They said it so many times throughout this article. It was amazing.
Well, I think too, it's really important to understand. I remember when I bought my first house 25 years ago, and what the mortgage rules were back in those days. Like back in those days, you
Yeah,
could have 40-year amortizations. You could purchase a home with no cash. It was like a no down payment. Um, you weren't getting stress tests. Like purchasing a home years ago was much easier than what it is as of today. And and that's the other thing that we need to understand. And we've said it before and time again. When is the best time to buy is when you can. Because
yeah,
10 years ago was a lot easier to buy a home than 5 years ago. 5 years ago
yeah.
was a lot easier to buy a home than in today's current environment. But when people are saying, hey, I'm going to wait for the rates to lower, you know what? The rates are going to be where they're at. If we believe that rates are going to go to these all-time lows again of these between 1 and 2.5%, we're dreaming. Like I believe that we are in a rate environment that is going to be maybe between 3.5 to high fours. That's the rate environment that we're in and that we're going to continue to see. So if you're holding
So
on to that rate, I'm going to wait for rates to correct, you're going to be waiting a long time. Then we will say, well, I'm going to hold on for the market to correct. Again, we've talked about this before. The market is a little bit of a roller coaster ride as
the
of
market moves with the rate. So that's what I was going to pause you on, Geoff. If the rates, sure, if you can sit and say, I'm going to continue to wait for the rates to dip. Well, rate dips generate activity. And so the lower the rates go, the higher the properties get priced for.
Yeah.
Right? That's the exchange in pockets. We talked about it before when rates were getting higher. That's why the value of homes were going lower.
Yeah.
It's just an exchange. So the longer you wait for those rates to drop, that is the environment that you wade yourself into. You wade yourself into the waters of, okay, now I've got low rates, great, but now I'm paying a premium for a home. That is what we were in the pandemic.
Yeah. Yeah. And we're just
I'm sorry, go
rolling,
on, but that was my
we're
point. That was
rolling
what I was
out
going
of
to
an
say.
environment where we are in a buyer's market, and we are in a
Yes,
buyer's market because the rates were where they're at.
right.
And now that we're seeing the rates drop, we're starting to see a slight shift from that. I don't think we've seen a full pendulum move yet.
No,
I believe that is to come. But
yes,
to your point, we're so focused on the rates, and we don't realize, as to your point, the lower the rates, all of a sudden you're going to be paying a premium on the market, right? And when
yeah,
you have a
yeah,
little bit, when you have higher rates, you're going to get a discount on the market. And
right.
and either way, and either sandbox that you're in, I just always want to encourage people is like, look, the best time to buy is when you can, because when you look back at your life, be it 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I bought my first house at 27. I'm just turning 54. I take a look at my equity growth in 27 years of home ownership. And if I didn't buy that home to this study, it's a night and day difference.
Right. What is that, Geoff? What did I say? 1.4 million to $11,900.
Yeah.
That number is ridiculous. In that age group, 55 to 64. I mean, I know one was with a pension, one was without, but that's typically what those that's the entrepreneur, let's say the real estate agent, us, right? Mortgage brokers, right? If we as those people didn't own a property, we are in that category of $11,900 versus somebody with a pension that owns a home. It's not the pension that drives that value to $1.4 million. It's that home it's that property that drives that value, that net worth to $1.4 million. That is a stark difference, Geoff. That number. That is a frightening, gut wrenching number. I
Yeah.
I was shocked. There's not money. There's not much that shocks me when it comes to real estate and numbers and just people's financial wealth and stuff like that. But I didn't think that like it was that big. You know what I mean? Like if somebody had told me to guess, I would have probably laughingly said 30. You know what I mean? And thought that was, being cheeky is a low number. But to see $11,900, that's terrifying.
That's when you're 55, but even going back to the stat between the age groups of 35, in that range, it's
Well,
still a
that just means it's going to get lower.
yeah.
To me, that's what I'm saying. To me, that's my point. Your net worth, if I'm looking at that study, 55 to 64, right? And I don't have a property, and my net worth is $11,900. At 35 years old, and I don't have a property, my net worth is 44. That just means to me that the people with the home at 457, they're going to become 1.4, and me, as I creep to 40 to 55, I'm going to go from 44 down to 11. That's what that tells me.
Well, and the other thing to understand too is that the longer you wait to purchase a property, the harder that it is, because your income
Well,
is going to be dropping as the older
that's
you
the
get.
point. That is what that falls into. That is why it drops down to $11,900. So I wanted to make sure I took time. I actually wrote this out because I've got a statement. So if for everybody listening, if you've got a pen handy, get ready. If you don't, I'll wait because this is important not, but these are 5 important notes to jot down. Okay?
My pen is ready and it actually is working. So make sure your pen
Let's
is
go.
working too.
That's right. Number 1, home ownership is the new wealth standard. Real estate isn't just an asset anymore. For Canadians, owning a home is increasingly seen as the only reliable way to build long-term wealth.
Yep.
Number 2, young families are the most impacted by the wealth gap. The gap between young homeowners and renters is the largest, showing how critical it is for younger Canadians to access affordable housing to build a secure financial future. Number 3, real estate investment as an entry strategy. We're seeing more renters invest in secondary properties, showing how crucial real estate has become as a wealth building strategy, even if it's not your primary residence. Number 4, the wealthiest Canadians are underrepresented. Canada's richest families aren't fully represented in these surveys, which limits our understanding of the country's true wealth distribution and the policies we might need to address it. And number 5, calls for policy reform are growing. Given the widening wealth gap, there's a call for policies that address housing affordability. The data suggests we need strategies that make homeownership more accessible if we want to close the wealth divide in Canada. So the bottom line is this: real estate has become a cornerstone of financial security in Canada, and without it, many are left struggling to build wealth. For policymakers, this is a critical issue. If we want to create a financially secure future for all Canadians, addressing the affordability and accessibility of housing has to be front and center. That's where we as real estate professionals can also make a difference by guiding our clients, advocating for solutions, and bringing our insights into conversations that influence change. That is my statement, Geoff.
Wow. Well,
that is my statement from the podium.
Hey, I like the soapbox that you're on. I like the soapbox you're on. It makes you look 7 feet tall because you're already 6'3". And for me, what I hear from there, buy a home.
Yes.
It's foundational block of your future net worth. Our government has been mandated to make housing more affordable by changing some of the mortgage regulations that are moving forward. They're trying to encourage first-time home buyers. They're trying to make it easier to qualify for mortgages. They're utilizing amortizations, which will increase purchase power. So again, our government is also recognizing this and mandating home ownership in their political platform. Like we're coming onto an election. We're seeing all these mortgage rule changes, and it's all surrounding about getting people into home ownership, right? I think this study just follows that up to say, hey, if you don't want to be eating out of a soup can when you're 55 and have $11,000 in your bank, and now you need to figure out how you're going to live. And again, the average age in Canada here is 82 years old. How you're going to live off of 11 grand, you're in your old age pension and your CPP, which isn't much for the next 27 years. You know, that
are we going to have it too? Hey, and we don't even need to get into that, but is it even going to be there?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So yeah, I think give us your lasting thoughts, Allister, and let's.
That was it, man. That statement was my lasting thoughts. That was it. that statement was my tie down, man. That in all seriousness, that's just what I really wanted us to kind of talk about today. It was just something that I had read that I thought, holy cow, these numbers that they shocked me, and I know people don't typically read these types of things, right? It's not something that people go, oh,
Yeah.
let's see what the wealth survey look, especially when it only comes out every few years, right? It's not something that people have on their calendar to say, hey,
Yeah.
it's out,
I
right?
think
And
too,
it's
like
important to know.
when you're in that sandbox and you recognize and you do own a home and you know what you purchased it for and you now know what it's worth. Um, I think that's something that some people already know. But
Yep.
I think what's great about this survey, and even to bring it to your attention, was there's a lot of people that need to be gently reminded on this,
Yeah.
right? There's a
Yeah.
lot of people that say, "Hey, I'm going to do it next year," right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that say, "Hey, I'm just going to wait until I save up more of a down payment."
Yep.
And I always say, like, if you're going to wait, you're going to time yourself out.
Yep. You're going to wait yourself out of the market.
And again, I would just leave it with this. The best time to buy is when you can. If you are on the fence for whatever reason that may be, start off small. Maybe it's not going to be that townhouse. Maybe it's not going to be that detached home. Maybe it's not going to be in Vancouver, but you need to readjust what your investment strategy is when it comes to home ownership. And when you start small and you're consistently doing things in the right direction, that small will always turn into big, right? And I always
Right.
use that penny analogy is if
That's it.
somebody was going to give you a penny that was going to compound its worth for the next 30 days or give you $1 million in cash, what do you want? People will say, I want that $1 million in cash.
You want that penny, baby.
That penny compounding its worth on a daily basis for 30 days, I believe it comes up to $5.6 million. And I know
Yeah.
people are going to Google that. I have this conversation all the time, even at industry events. I remember giving this
No,
analogy,
it's a real thing. That's a
and they
real
were like,
thing.
you are lying. And I'm like,
Yeah.
hey, go fact check it. It works out to be 5.6 million. So
Yeah.
again, where I'm going with this is that a little turns out to be a lot. You just need to be patient and play that game.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, that's it, my man. That's it. I think it's that time to wrap it up and again step off of our pulpit, step off of our soapbox. As always, everybody, thank you so much for listening and taking the time. Continue to support us, continue to like us, love us, share us. Tell all your friends about us. Get us on Spotify, Apple, wherever you get your lovely podcast material. Geoff and I hope you have an amazing week. We'll be here next Tuesday for episode number 34. You all have a great week. We'll
Well,
chat
hey,
at you
not
later.
Tuesday, Wednesday.
Wednesday, not Tuesday,
Wednesday.
Wednesday. I'm sorry, I'm a day ahead. I'm a day ahead. Wednesday. All right, peeps. We'll talk to you next week.
All
Cheers.
right. Y'all have a nice
Bye
day.
now.